issues. The issues we have around sustainability is not about the environment first. And it's not about the economics first. It's about our social disconnect. And that's what sustainability is. Sustainability is the sweet spot between social, environmental, and economics. And in order to find our way to a sustainable world, we really need to first start working on social connection. So that requires nurturing a culture of connection and collaboration. I talked a little bit about that last time. And a culture of collaboration or connection is all about, you know, anybody know how you make sourdough bread?
No.
You catch the wild yeast in the air, right? And I mean, that's in the air already. You nurture this environment that takes that wild yeast, and before that dough turns into a pathogenic culture, it takes over and makes a wonderful loaf of bread. And that's what we have to do. That's our work. And that's what community building is all about. We need a deep sense of connection that can overpower the disconnect, the pathogenic disconnect that's in our culture and society. It's a paradigm shift. It really is a paradigm shift that supports this connection. And what that means to me is that it's about thriving in an evolutionary shift, not surviving a collapse. Some of you folks might be into the survival movement, and I'm not saying anything wrong or negative about the survival movement, but we really need a shift that thinks about thriving in a new world, in a new culture. I don't necessarily. People have been thinking things are going to collapse for thousands of years, and they collapse and get rebuilt, and collapse and get rebuilt. I mean, we could be in a really dangerous place, and we are in a really dangerous place, probably more so than ever in history. But I really think there's the potential of thriving into a whole new way of living.
What about using the word survival?
Pardon?
Survival.
Thrival. That's right. And with that, and I think that some of the keys to that shift is caring for our neighbor rather than self-protection. In survival, it's all about self-protection. In thrival, it's about caring for our neighbors. And it's about shifting from fear to trust and love. We are so rooted in fear. So, I mean, our psyche is steeped in fear every day, right? I mean, who doesn't struggle with fear every day? I mean, it might not be conscious, but on some level, I think we all struggle with fear. And that's what the shift, I think, is all about. And it's social capital that's the wealth of the new economy. And so some of those things are what community is all about. I want to say a couple things about. I want to read a couple of quotes. Anybody hear the Pioneers?
No.
The Pioneers have been around about 20 years. It's a movement. They have a national conference and regional conferences around the country. It's a very. It started out. Here's their. Here's their tagline: revolution from the heart of nature. And I just read recently they included in something they're doing this year, and from the human heart. So it's a revolution from the heart. And what they're doing at their conference this year, they have a special day-long event called Catalyzing a Resilient Communities Network. And I think they're seeing at the heart of this movement towards sustainability, the heart of the movement towards permaculture, the heart of a movement towards reconnection is really creating a network of resilient communities. I think if we're ever going to really succeed at community development in our cities, in our culture, we've got to really reconnect. And there was a couple of things I quoted on this about this workshop on resilient communities. This comes from Paul Gillig, who wrote a book called The Great Disruption. This isn't about the Great Depression. This is a great disruption. It says, the science says we have physically entered a period of great change, a synchronized related crash of the economy and ecosystem. This crisis presents what may be a once-in-civilization opportunity for a step change in human evolution, but one driven consciously rather than biologically. The Great Disruption will ultimately take human society to a higher evolutionary state. We are the people we've been waiting for. I just love that. It says, in the face of the Great Disruption, the key is building resilience, both ecological and social, while making the successful transformation to a sustainable civilization. Key principles of resilience thinking include systems thinking, fostering the system's capacity to adapt to dramatic change, and diversity of stakeholders and responses. It requires greater decentralization, localization, and redundancies while relinquishing command and control approaches. Other keys are to build community and social capital and empower local communities to solve their own problems. Above all, learn, experiment, and innovate. This to me is the foundational stuff of community weaving, and I'm just going to share a couple resources and then you come to questions. There's two resources I want to point out if you're interested in looking. I mean, definitely check out Bioneers, bioneers.org. Communityweaving.org is an interesting initiative by a woman that I've recently met. It's about really how do we do this in our whole entire city? How do we build community in a way that weaves it? And some of the things she talks about are webs. This is what we're weaving: webs of support and fabric of community. So communityweaving.org, I just think some of what the intention there is some really great stuff that virtually we can be working together to optimize our resources and our connections.